Welcome back to Sessions from the Edge. This is where we explore the moments that break us open and the ones that help us rebuild as well. This season carries a simple truth. Chronic conditions do not define you. You are not broken. You're simply being rebuilt. Each conversation brings you into that turning point where clarity begins, identity shifts, and a new path forward appears. My next guest is one of these sort of people. She studied behavioural neuroscience. Then she did a teacher's diploma specialising in biology and psychology and became a teacher of maths and science. But that's not why she's here. So I thought we would spice up the show a little, and I'll be giving you a thank you gift courtesy of Hazel. Hazel's not only an academic, but also a singer-songwriter who combines her formal knowledge of behavioural neuroscience and spirituality with performance to illuminate the interconnectedness of things and promote holistic well-being. So in the usual sense of decoding, aligning and thriving, I'd like to introduce Hazel Ray. Hazel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming. It was great. We met a few months ago down in Geelong, and I had the pleasure of being the presenter after Hazel. And so I sat in on her presentation beforehand, and I must say it was really different. It was something totally unique. I mean, I've never had neuroscience and psychology presented to me the way you do it, and it was really relaxing. I was all zenned out, lying back, and I thought, I've got to share this with my audience. So, Hazel, in that decode, align, thrive perspective that we have at Decode Your Diagnosis, can you tell us a bit about your backstory and decode why you got to what you're doing these days?
Of course. So basically, my story starts right back when I was my first memories. I was absolutely petrified of the dark, and some people grow out of it. It's something that we get to sort of 10, and irrational fears can sort of float away. But for me, those fear of the dark was right up with me until I was 32 and a half years old.
Right.
So, fast forward till about 10 years old, I was bullied in primary school. I actually am almost blind in this eye here because
Wow.
we don't know the full reasoning behind it, but my optic nerve was detaching when I was in prep. And I remember my pa, he actually is a big reason why I play music in the first place. He was a drummer,
Mm. Mm.
and he actually had one glass eye. He had a pocket knife go into his eye when he was 7.
Oh,
I know, absolutely horrific. But he had one good eye and one bad eye. So one day I said to my pa, I'm like, "Hey, pa, which is your good eye and which is your bad eye?" And he's like, "Oh, this one." And I was like, "Same. I can't see anything out of this one, but I can see everything out of this one." And then they took me to the optometrist.
and they
And
all went, what the?
what's going on here? So I was patched. So I was the pirate, for
Yeah,
6 months
yeah.
until the eye stabilized, but it's nowhere near. It's like almost half vision.
Wow.
So when you see me play, the microphone actually goes under my chin because if I don't, I can't really see half the piano.
Oh,
That's
wow.
that's the story behind that.
Wow.
So being bullied in primary school, and then my mum and dad had split up at that time, and unfortunately I was exposed to some domestic violence.
Uh,
And I was also a national gymnast, so I spent a lot of my time training,
mm.
and my gymnastics coach was an abuser.
Oh, no.
So every single place that I existed in was becoming a place of unsafety. So my amygdala, my alarm system in my brain was constantly firing
Mm.
cortisol. And as we know, when that happens, the hippocampus of the brain starts to shrink because of all the cortisol, and you have trouble piecing memories together. Your frontal cortex goes offline, there's no reasoning and things like that. So unfortunately for me, around that time, a lot of my memories and trying to piece together my experiences are quite fragmented.
Mm.
I didn't know all of this obviously at the time.
No, sure.
But basically, I got in the shower one day and I was getting ready for school, and I got out and I heard a voice in my head, and it was my voice. And this is what people think, that usually with like when they hear the word psychosis, they hear that people are hearing voices. Now, this voice that I'm talking about is just like your normal internal dialogue that everyone has.
Correct. Yeah, I
I
got
don't,
mine. Mine's called Charlie.
you're sort of So this voice said to me, if you don't touch that doorknob 3 times, you're going to have a bad day. So I went over and I touched the doorknob 3 times, and then it would get louder and I would have to skip steps, or my dad was going to die, or I'd have to go pick blades of grass out of these paddocks it's just random control. And Western psychology, for a lot of my life, having seen psychologists,
Yeah.
basically would put it down to, compartmentalizing and disassociation so that I could control my environment. And further along to that, I basically, obviously, all through my high schooling, I took myself to see a counselor that was available at the school. And I realized that I wanted to help young teenagers navigate through this experience of teenage years, because I felt extremely alone. Not only did I have this intense fear of the dark, when I was in year 9, I was diagnosed with insomnia. So I would be awake until about 5 a.m. in the morning. I had a little card at school that allowed me to go to the sick bay so I could sleep. And it was because I would lie in bed and I would genuinely feel like there were things around me, things
Mm.
that I could feel. And the part of the story I haven't explained was when I was about 7, before my mum and dad broke up, before the abuse began, I used to see these dark figures in the hallway. So we'd have a light down the end of the hallway. And so when a light is down here and someone stands in front of it, it casts a shadow.
Mm.
So the shadow, I would see a shadow of someone walking back and forth like this.
Mm.
So I got my dad in the room with me and it started again, and he couldn't see them, but I could. And that stuck with me. And not only that, I started journaling at 9 years old, and I would write about these figures. And I would also write about my experiences and what was going on for me. And not only, I find it interesting that I did this, because later on, having studied neuroscience, I understand how important it is for journaling to be able to bring the subconscious mind to the conscious mind. So we
Mhm.
can start to heal. It's like going to therapy, but on your own. You're able to sort of process your thoughts and be like, well, that's not very helpful, or that's not even true.
'Cause I was wondering why journaling's really popular globally. It's a big thing, and I was wondering why it was so. Because something has to be more than just popular to actually be a global phenomenon.
Well, they actually say it's really hard to do this, but when you get triggered by something and you get sent into fight or flight,
Yeah.
all the blood drains from the prefrontal cortex. So your identity of who you are, basically, and or anything that's to do with reasoning and processing turns offline.
Right.
So one thing you can do is get out some paper and start writing down what's going on for you, and
Right.
that turns the prefrontal cortex back online and calms the amygdala down, so that you can realize that you're safe and that nothing's actually happening to you.
Okay.
So,
A bit of neuroscience tech.
but it's but again, I didn't know any of this, and I was
Oh,
going to actually have
awesome.
them next to me because I had the kerfuffle with the music. I didn't get them
Yeah.
out, but I have a big batch of journals.
Yeah. Right.
I've been journaling for so long. And what I'm going to talk about in the align part is a lot about the journaling and the change of language in the journaling, and what I found really interesting about that. So I obviously had been through these experiences. I've seen things other people haven't seen. I've had these energies around me as a kid. And I just wanted to study neuroscience because I wanted to understand me
Mm.
and what was going on for me. And I also then potentially wanted to help people. So I did the Bachelor of Behavioural Neuroscience. But in that time, I actually was suffering from an eating disorder. And again, I heard voices. You can't eat that. You've got to run 10Ks today. If you eat that, you've got to minus this many calories. Like, it was just this constant voice that would just control my reality. And I had that experience alongside me for about 6 years. So even having studied the neuroscience, I'd gone and started being a teacher, and I was still going through this. Um, and then we go forward to, I was about 29 when I had my first son, and I started suffering from postnatal anxiety. Now, it can manifest in different forms, but for me, it was intrusive visions. And these intrusive visions would be of me harming my child. Now,
Oh,
I obviously went to Western medicine again, so went and saw a psychiatrist this time. And because I'd studied neuroscience, I was very aware that the lack of sleep was imbalancing my neurochemistry and that
yeah,
a lot of this was probably being caused by this. And so to the point where she just looked at me and she just said, "You're not psychotic. You need to go home and you have a good sleep." So I want to preface this to your audience too. Throughout my whole life and the trauma that you actually have heard and what I've experienced, I've never been medicated for my mental health ever. And I'm not
really?
saying that standing here going, "Oh, look at me." I think it's actually a really interesting part to my story because if you if we were to talk about how the depths of my awakening happened, these visuals that I've had, the auditory that I've had, it would very much align with psychosis in textbook terms.
Mm.
But I was able to heal completely without anything medicated because what I've done after my research is that I understand that a lot of the pharmaceuticals that we actually give people are available to us. It just means we need to trigger it to release it.
Yeah,
So
right.
things like benzodiazepine is the upgrade to melatonin, and I can talk about that a bit later. And the upgrade to benzodiazepine is dimethyltryptamine, which is DMT. And DMT is released at birth and death. And a lot of people will take DMT to have these out of body experiences. A lot of people that take it will experience like NDE, like near death experience type of episodes.
Yeah.
And basically, how I understand that now is just it's changing the neurochemistry in your brain to expand the bandwidth of the frequencies that you're able to interpret and decode, for example.
Yeah. And so that's the reasoning behind, because there's always a reason for people, as traumatic as your reasons are, and they are seriously traumatic.
Mm.
It's how people deal with trauma that separates them. So, my book was all about decoding my own conditions. I had prostate cancer. Now I've got severe heart disease, and right on the edge of death. you know,
Mm.
and so, but it changes your whole mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so you learnt to deal with trauma and so on another way by turning to singing and songwriting. Tell us a bit about that.
So when I was 16, I started singing and I'd started playing at piano at 12. And the sad part for me was the only musician was my pa in the family, and he actually died of motor neuron disease when I was 10. So again, in that year where all that other trauma had started, my pa, who was one of my best friends, he actually passed away, which is really sad. Uh, and I don't know, music to me again is such a healer.
Yeah.
And only now after studying, so my third year of my bachelor of behavioral neuroscience, we did a cognitive dual tasking research task. And what we kind of understood was that the brain would actually oscillate between firings rather than co-firing at the same time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And basically when I'm playing piano and I'm singing, I feel like all of the other memories of trauma or potential cortisol firing can be turned down and I can just be present in the moment with the music. And so for me, it became my healer. And I
Mm,
would just play and sing and play and sing. But most people would be like, "Oh, well, why aren't you further along in your music career?" And because obviously I got, sort of programmed by the society that I lived in at the time, which was to be successful, you needed to go to university and you needed to get a degree. And, that's like ticking those boxes. So the music career got pushed to the side, even though Sony did actually write back to me. I sent them an album and they wrote me a letter back, which I now have found out is very rare to even receive a letter.
yeah,
But
right.
they said that I had a beautiful voice, but my songwriter needing maturing. And obviously I was 18, so I was writing about like love and heartbreak and those sorts of things. But I just saw that as a rejection. And I was like, okay, well, there was no like YouTube taking off then. There was no Spotify. Like, how am I supposed to share my music with the world? I needed a label to take me
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah.
So then I pushed it all aside, and then the universe would have it that I would go through all these experiences and I'd go through this massive transformation. And I said it at 32 and a half. And then that's when I decided to bring the music back. But I suppose before we get into that part of the journey, I would love to share with you the song I wrote about the voices that I was hearing. And I called it My Demon because not only was it a very auditory experience for me, in some of my darkest nights, I had visual experiences with this, what I call the demon. So when you're listening to this song, for anyone out there, it's very easy to relate to this song, just thinking to that internal dialogue that can be sometimes negative. And yeah, so I'm going to play it for you now.
Fantastic. Let's hear it.
I see you standing there with your yellow eyes, real dark face and no heart inside. You crawled inside your head and you torment me. You lurk within the dark, wake me from my sleep. Horns that point deep within my soul, taking me places that no one should ever go. Oh, no, what I've seen inside my head is because of you, and the pain that you have caused has got to go. You're my demon that I fear. You're my demon that I must heal. You're my demon that's caged my soul. You're my demon that has to go. At times in life you took my inner child, right then and there, no more reason to smile. Then came a life with a goal too high, so whenever I'd fall, you just fill me with lies. You took me to the edge where the light would be, so I could find the strength who I'm going to be. You're my demon that I fear. You're my demon that I must heal. You're my demon that's caged my soul. You're my demon that has to go. I see you. God heals you. But without you, there's no need to hide. You're my demon that I fear. You're my demon that I must heal. You're my demon that's caged my soul. You're my demon that has to go. You're my demon that has to go. I see you standing there with your hazel eyes.
That was lovely, Hazel. Tell me a little bit about that song before we kick on.
So the song is about kind of saying, if I didn't go through the experiences that I went through, I'm almost like, I suppose I am grateful for them because they allowed me to transform my life in ways that I could never have fathomed. So before my awakening, I had birthed two beautiful boys,
Mm.
but I was in a marriage that I didn't want to be in, and I had been going through some abuse in there in ways, and I didn't want to go back to work full time, and that was something that was sort of looming. And I didn't want to live where I lived. I wanted more for my kids.
Mm.
So interestingly, 2 weeks after this awakening, now if your audience want to know more about the story,
Mm.
episode 4 on my podcast called Beyond the Human goes into a lot of detail. It's actually a 40-minute episode about what I actually experienced and how I understand those experiences. So I had 3 nights of what I understand as like dark psychic attack.
Mm.
And when I came out the other side, I had a healer that I was working with because I'd given up, not given up, but I'd pushed Western medicine to the side, and I was like, all right, I want this over once and for all. And she said to me that I would go through 2 weeks of sort of intensive care where I would have this fear response come in, but the voices wouldn't come and the visuals wouldn't come. And she was right. I would have these panic attacks and nothing would happen. And then I remember getting out of the shower one day and I stood in front of the mirror where I would normally hear voices about, picking things that's wrong with my physique. I heard, "You're beautiful." And then it was followed by like, "Why aren't you sharing your voice with the world? Why aren't you writing music anymore? Why are you in this relationship? Why aren't you living?" And because I can't explain to you, having had a fear of the dark that was so intense that even when my husband would go away, I'd have to go sleep at my mum's house. To
Mm.
then, there's a dog barking.
Can't hear it.
Yeah, so I'm glad. So to then go from no fear of the dark. In fact, I got to the point where I was like, I reckon I could sleep outside naked. I feel so free. I couldn't. It's like someone had turned the static off. Like there was like always constant noise around me, or like feelings, and there was no fear anymore. So I realized that I could be on my own and I could do these things. And I'd written a song called "Find the Light," which I'm not going to play today, but it's on Spotify.
Yeah.
And I got a phone call from a guy I used. So this is just after the 2-week period. I got a phone call from a guy who I used to work with, and he was the chaplain. And we used to write music sometimes together just for fun. But this is like when I'm a teacher, a math
Yeah.
science teacher. We just write music for fun. And he said, "Hey, I'm thinking of becoming a producer. Have you written any songs lately? I reckon that you would be a great first project." And I'm sitting here going, really? Like, really? Because that's what in my head, I was like, maybe I should start the music thing. And then I got this phone call and it felt like a massive sign.
Yeah.
And then again, I have an episode called Signs and I think Synchronicities. And I have a whole story about me asking the universe to give me more signs. And it's a long story, but I ended up rocking up at a car park. I was just listening, guiding. I drove to this car park. There was a guy in the car next to me. He was listening to music. Then he starts speaking to me as I get out of the car. I'm sitting there the whole time going, oh yeah, like this is so coincidental. Turns out he starts talking to me. Next minute, he's got a CD that he's just released. And then he's like, "Oh, by the way, I've got a recording studio at the back of my house if you ever want to come record." And I'm like, okay.
Everything's pointing in the
I was
same
like, okay,
direction.
let's do this. So
Yeah.
I just, within 3 months, I'd left my town, my husband, and the career. And I just I just started trusting the process because I felt so free.
Yeah. And is that when the alignment started to happen? Is that
So this
sort of
is
the opening to
definitely
it?
this is the alignment. This is
Yeah.
when but really the neuroscience component, this is what's so interesting about the whole alignment concept, because I started with the music. I released, I think about, I don't know, I probably released about 7 songs by the time I got to this point where I'm like, okay, this spirituality stuff, this woo-woo stuff can actually be explained by science. When we talk about atoms and frequency and energy, and if everything's energy, then we're permeable beings, and that means if we're permeable beings, that we can receive messages, much like an antenna can receive a message. That's how our eyes receive messages. They change light energy into chemical and electrical impulses, and they go to our occipital lobe and are decoded in the brain. And this is something that I explain to people. It's like, we don't realize when we perceive our reality, what we're perceiving it through. And the perception is coming from the lens, which is what I call our VR headset. We can only see so far, like in terms of the range of frequency. We
Mhm.
can only hear so far in a range of frequency. So it's not that far out of my wheelhouse to think, okay, older people can't hear as well as a baby.
What was that?
So is it possible that they're hearing things that we can't? You know,
Yeah, true.
even that alone is that's what's the word, tangible. It's
Yeah.
accessible to understand. And it's the same with the bandwidth of the frequency of what the eyes can see. We're not all made exactly the same. Some people are going to have greater bandwidths than others, so then their perception will be different. And then how the brain decodes that frequency is to the brain's, it's going to use what it knows. So the whole demon experience or seeing figures that other people can't see, my brain, the way I understand that now is that me just decoding a frequency that other people can't access, and that's the way my brain decoded it. Who knows? And I mean, the shadows in the hallway, I've got other theories on that too, in terms of energetic beings that might move at a higher frequency, like a fan. When a fan's moving, you can see right through it, but when it's stationary, you can see all the rungs.
Mm.
So is it possible that there are things, and there are things like Wi-Fi? Can you see the Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
You know, so I find that our society, in our upbringings, predominantly have really just been taught that what is real is what you see, smell, taste, touch, and feel. You know, so what's 5 senses? Smell, taste, touch, hear. What was the other one? See. But ancient Egyptians got taught. This comes back to the alignment, and this is me putting all the puzzle pieces together. Yeah, this is what was
Yes,
happening to
lovely.
me through all these years.
Yeah.
So ancient Egyptians actually taught that we had 6 senses, and the 6th sense was thought.
Right.
And there's a picture, the eye of Horus, and they use each part of the symbol for each of the senses. Now that got lost in, I think, as the world westernized potentially. And I then questioned with that, okay, flick back through all the journals. And what I noticed was there's a recurring pattern of whenever I had a really negative thought, it was a you statement. And as I said to you when I got out of the shower, it was, if you don't touch that doorknob 3 times, you're going to have a bad day.
Mm.
You know, if you don't run 10Ks today, you know, you're going to get really fat. Or if you don't, yeah, or the intrusive images. You know, I'm not, as a parent, I'm not asking, I don't want to have those visions. So why am I having them? I'm not asking for them. They're intrusive. And it got me thinking that, okay, maybe so Albert Einstein teaches that, or no, sorry, Newton's law of every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah.
So if I touch you, you're warm. So you're then for potentially broadcasting your own energetic frequency. And then I believe that we would attract the similar frequency. I'm not just saying it, the heat, but in terms of if we can go with the soul frequency, potentially, maybe I was on demonic 101. And it's not a sure thing. Like, the trauma that I'd experienced, I was pretty low. I'd probably I had a lot of trauma blockages and density in the body. And to me, that stagnant, dense energy is the energy that can potentially cause blockages and cause things like cancer, constant stress, because it's all physical, yeah? Like, it's all that, everything is being released, but that's all energy too. Everything is atomic level, is energy. It's all frequency. And so I'm about to go on to some other tangent in a second, but I'll go back to the thoughts for a second. So then I found out that they've done research with DNA, and under certain constructions, our DNA can conduct electricity. And then I was like looking at the electromagnetic spectrum, because in year 9 I teach light, and you teach the electromagnetic spectrum and explain how between about 420 nanometers to about 720 nanometers is where the visible light spectrum exists for us, what we can actually perceive. But outside of that, you go, got microwaves and, radio waves and TV waves, and they slowly get faster and faster and faster and faster, higher frequency.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual electromagnetic spectrum that we teach goes from about radio waves down to gamma rays, which is the rays we understand that can change our DNA and cause cancer. That's why we've got to be careful of it, right? But it doesn't end there. It keeps going all the way down to the atomic level. And so if an atom is predominantly made up of space, then we're permeable beings. We have energy moving through us all the time. And so I explain to people too, I find it interesting that I move to the beach where in my understanding there's a lot of less conflicting energies in terms of, like, in the city, if you think about the amount of Wi-Fi and sound and, conflicting and frequencies that are in the city, and then I come out to where the ocean is and it's expansive and it's less populated.
Yeah.
The environment that I'm putting myself in is probably quite balancing and cleansing.
Mm.
The word forest comes from the breakup of forest.
Oh, really?
And they did
Okay.
that because when you go into the forest, you have natural energies, the trees and frequencies that can help balance the body. I was like, again, just stuff like that. Getting all these puzzle pieces and going, oh, I feel like we've lost a lot of ancient wisdom that just because it can't all be scientifically quantified, we push aside. But if you can look at parts of the science, it's like, well, it's not unplausible. Like, you can't. For me, my mantra is consider all, believe nothing.
Mm.
And the ancient elephant parable that we spoke about earlier, is really just about, which we didn't discuss, but I wanted to explain that,
Mm.
if the story is, okay, there's 4 blind people and every blind person was asked to hold a part of the elephant. So the first blind person gets the tusks of the elephant, the second blind person gets the legs of the elephant, the third blind person gets the side of the elephant, the last person gets the tail, and they're all asked what an elephant is. And each blind person then goes to explain, well, an elephant is a sharp spear, or an elephant is like a rough tree trunk, or the elephant is a warm curved wall, or the elephant is a rough robe, because they're only able to explain what they perceive with the senses that they have. Yeah. So we know that the elephant is actually a way bigger picture than that, but they're not able to perceive that from their experience. But that's their truth.
Mm.
And so I understand religions to be pointing to all of that. So we're all got a part of the elephant, but we're unable to perceive the bigger picture. And I put science into the same thing, into the same category as all the religions, because have you seen an atom?
No.
I haven't. But I will use it to explain everything in my material world. But I'm believing that they exist, and I'm believing that that's why reality is the way that it is. Just like people believe that Jesus walked the earth, or, So for me, that's what I come down to. So that I wanted to say that they found that in science that yes, we can conduct electricity with our DNA. So is it that unplausible then that potentially we receive a message and it changes that into chemical and electrical impulses and it goes up to the brain and it's decoded as you're not good enough.
Right.
Or you're beautiful,
Yeah.
depending on what frequency you're emitting and what radio station you're tuning into. And my theory is that if you're on that low frequency, you hear the thoughts enough and your brain fires that enough, then it becomes an I statement.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to believe that about yourself and it becomes one of your limiting beliefs. But if we were taught that thoughts potentially weren't all our own, then maybe the ones that don't serve us, you just let go. We don't embody them. Because Hebb's law says that neurons that fire together wire together. So if you're creating emotion with a thought, you're going to wire that, and that's going to go right up here. It's going to kind of become part of that hard wiring of your brain. And then later on in life, it's going to be really hard to try and change that.
And I suppose then that question I have then is, how did you change? So yes, you had that tipping point going into the music and you had the opportunity there, but those are all just parts of a puzzle. It really takes a lot of introspection and a lot of belief and a lot of, I don't know, redirecting to align yourself into your way forward, because you've turned what started out not so good to what it is now, to, with lovely sons, beachside suburb, music, and I'm assuming you're still a teacher at some respect. Yeah, so you've sort of, we've all got to do the 40-40-40 bit. We've got to have a job to earn the money to be able to retire. That's the story we're told, and I did the same pathway as you did in terms of that sort of a story. But you're not doing that now. You're doing what people strive to do. So how did you bring that all together in alignment? How did you manage to
So I'm going to
let
play
those
another song
things?
in a minute, and then I'll talk about all of that and what everyone else can do as well to start being
Okay.
able to live more in alignment. So when I was in my darkest nights, I actually thought that the best thing for my children was if I wasn't on this earth. And I had visions of how I would take my life, and that it didn't seem selfish to me that if I was going to better them, because I don't want to hurt my children.
Mm.
So coming out the other side of that, and literally in that song, My Demon, you took me to the edge where the light would be. That lyric is about, you took me to the point where I needed to go, so I could become the person that I am today. And so now I don't want to live with any regrets. So if I want to start a podcast, I'll start a podcast. If I want to put a show on, I'll put a show on. If I want to fly somewhere, I'm going to go somewhere, because I don't want to be on my deathbed going, I wish I had have done that.
Mm.
So I want to play a song called Last Day on Earth, which is, in my opinion, the alignment piece, where you've got to get to that point where you're like, enough's enough. If I want to
It's
live my
interesting
life.
that it's interesting that you've taken that perspective, because it's not the first time I've heard this sort of perspective, and I think it's actually quite good, because I don't have a fear of death. Okay, I got two conditions right now that are disturbing to most people. One is the heart disease thing, but the other one is plaque. So I've got my main problem is that I've got plaque everywhere, and so that has a potential to end in Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't wish that on my family at all. I've seen it in our other close relatives, and it's just not pleasant.
Yeah.
But living for the last day, like there's another bunch of philosophies and theories that I've heard around the place as well about writing your eulogy. And if you write your eulogy as in the person you want to be on your deathbed, then you can actually, and this guy is a serious international business coach, and he talks about using your eulogy as a way to picture where you want to be when you're dead, and then come back 10-year plan, 5-year plan, 1-year plan. Yeah, I had the same
got
feeling.
chills.
Yeah, totally.
Giving me truth bumps.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a
so you
great way to look at it.
It is. And then he says, righto, if that's when you're going to be dead, because we're all going to have a certain horizon, there's certain statistics, and we're outside of the statistics if we've got chronic conditions and things and we're still alive and all that jazz. But let's say in my case, I'm 2 years before 60, so I've got another 20, 25 years if I can push it out that far, which is what I'm aiming for. So 25 years, what can I do in those times? And I step back 10 years, 5 years, 1 year. So what am I doing this year to be? And so it's such a powerful perspective. And that's what your song also sort of, when I reflect on it, that title of the song says the same sort of thing, that, it's not about death. It's not about this horrid perspective on the end game or morbid fascination. It's
But I
about
think that people who fear it the most are the ones that aren't living.
No, true, exactly.
So for me, in the song, you'll hear me say, checklist in hand, staring at your feet. That's the start. And at the end, I'm like, so the idea is that you're lying on your deathbed, and it's like checklist in hand, standing at my feet, and I smile because I love the life I've lived. So if it was tomorrow, there's nothing else I would be doing right now.
Yeah.
I can honestly say that. Like, there's things that we can wish for, but the thing with manifestation, I want to explain this too. People go, oh, what's this thing about manifestation? Like, I've got dreams, and I'm like, okay, what's your dream? And then it's like, for me, it was like, I wanted to be a singer and I wanted to be performing on stages, right? So when I decided that I needed to start to do cover gigs so that I could start making money, so I could start producing music, I'm like, I don't want to do cover gigs just playing piano. This was at 32. This is my brain. Well, I need to learn how to play guitar. So if I'm going to be on stages playing cover gigs all around, I need to be able to play guitar. So what did I do? I learned how to play guitar.
And
because
your website
the thing is that dreams alone are just dreams, but manifestation is dreams plus action. You can't create anything if you don't take action. So if you're going to be lying there going, I wish, I'm like, they're just wishes. You know, to dream something is what you said. Create the eulogy, find the steps and go, okay, well, I need to take action. And usually the guidepost to what it is the fear. The fear or the jealousy. Am I two that I go by? If I'm jealous of what someone's doing, it's usually because I want to be doing that.
Yeah, good point.
So I'm going to go do that. So the podcast thing was one of those. Like I really wanted to have a bigger, like a place to share my shows because I was only doing them in person. And I'm like, stuff it. I'll just put it out on the internet. And then, performing too. I'd be jealous of these people who were performing on these stages. And I'm like, that's because that's where I want to be. So it's one of those little the green-eyed monster, whatever they call it. He's worth listening to.
Yes.
All right, let me play this song for you.
Yeah, that sounds like a fantastic idea.
Checklist in hand, staring at your feet. Distant beeping in the colon of sleep. You search your soul for memories of past. Did you climb that mountain? Did you find joy? Did you laugh? If it's your last day on earth, can you be proud? Have no regrets. If it's your last day on earth, can you close your eyes? Can you smile? My light, weightless soul. Your trauma released and you've learned to let go. Did you wander that pathless path to ensure that you ain't coming back? Did you write a song to carry on? Did you find your life's mission? Did you find your purpose? Did you fall in love? If it's your last day on earth, can you be proud? Have no regrets. If it's your last day on earth, can you close your eyes? Can you smile? No could-haves, no would-haves, no should-haves. It's all up to you to write a story that is true. If it's your last day on earth, can you be proud? Have no regrets. If it's your last day on earth, can you close your eyes? Can you smile? If it's your last day on earth, can you be proud? Have no regrets. If it's your last day on earth, can you put a smile on that face? On that face this day. Can you be proud? Have no regrets. Checklist in hand, staring at my feet, and I smile, 'cause I love the life I've lived.
And we're back.
And we're back. And that was beautiful. We are so honoured to have you doing our own live presentation. Thank you.
This is so fun. Like, this is how I sort of do what I do on my podcast and at my shows, as you know. But
Yeah.
it's fun to do it with someone else. I haven't really done this on someone else's show, so I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
Well, thanks for sharing with us. I mean, it's not often you get to I mean, the thing that blew me away when I first listened to your presentation, I was literally meditating you got us lying down on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of sitting in chairs listening to some neuroscience talk, we were all lying down on yoga mats.
Yep.
And eyes closed, and yeah, it was just magic. It really was. Anyway, let's go back to you. So you've aligned yourself, and then how did you tell us how you sort of moved on towards thriving? You know,
it all comes together. So obviously I'd started playing the music, but things that I'd started to do after my awakening, when I started to go into that 2 weeks of intensive care, I started meditating. And
Oh,
I got an app called, it was back then, it was called Sync Tuition, and I'm plugging it because I don't have an affiliation, nothing, but I think
no, no.
it's one of the best meditation apps. It's now called Mind Spa. And someone has gone all over the world gathering sounds as well as using binaural beats, so to create coherence in the brain, which can allow you to drop into theta brainwaves, which I'll talk about in a second. And then they'll never let you go longer than 24 minutes. So you're not going to go into some sort of deep sleep, and they'll gong you back in. But what was really interesting about this app is that you go through levels, and
Mm.
each level has about 20 meditations. And at the start, they'll set an intention. And I felt like I was going through my spiritual journey and awakening alongside these meditations. Some were like
Oh,
a phone call, like answering the phone call of what you want to do, or uh, just questioning your, like, how you want to walk your path, what are things that excite you, or going back into the womb at 9 months. And it was one of the most profound experiences for me. Now I've done all the levels now,
yeah.
but I'll just randomly pick one, and I'll feel like that's what I'm being guided to work on today or whatever. So with the meditation in particular, I didn't know this at the time. Even though I'd studied neuroscience, I had to go then do my own research on this. But when I learned about neuroscience, I did learn about brainwaves. And one thing that we understand is that in waking alert state, like you and I are now, we're in beta brainwaves, which is really high frequency. And then when we slow our brainwaves down, we go into alpha brainwaves. Now, alpha, we can be driving the car and be in alpha brainwaves. That's my usual example. And the example of that is that when you get to somewhere and then you're like, how did I even get here?
Yeah, right.
Which is kind of scary because you've been going through traffic lights, you've been
Yeah.
making turns, you've been
You look
indicating,
around, yeah.
but you're actually processing in your conscious mind because you've done that act so many repetitive times. It's hardwired in your subconscious mind. So your subconscious is driving the car, and you're able to then allow your brain to then just consciously sort of organize. And you might even use imagery because imagery is part of the alpha brainwaves. Now, when you close your eyes, you automatically start to produce melatonin, which slows down your brain waves. So when we go to sleep, we go from beta to alpha to theta to delta, and we're asleep.
Mm.
Now, theta is that real interesting one. And so for people who experience this before sleep, you usually get like, some people get random faces or weird elephants flying, and it can be on that verge of sleep. Some people will miss it and go, as in like go really fast through it. But when you're meditating, uh, it can be depicted by lots of colors and like pulsing lights.
Pulsing
And
lights is one that I get a lot. Yeah.
yeah, but that doesn't. So this is the thing too. When people start meditating, these aren't things just happen off the bat, because it's like a muscle that needs to be trained. Because we need to slow the brain waves down. But when you're consciously thinking this isn't going to work, I don't know what meditation is. I'm thinking too much. I'm thinking about my thoughts. That's how everyone starts. I don't know. Was that the same experience for you when you started meditating?
Yeah, so usually it starts, I meditate 5 times a week in the
Hmm.
mornings. I use a method called heartfulness. And yeah, if it depends on my busyness of my brain, but it starts out with those pulsing lights. So they literally going, vroom,
Yeah.
vroom.
Do you get a black portal that opens up?
Yes. Yep. 100%.
Now that is not something that happens for people generally when they first, like, their very first experience is meditation. And I've had many people come to my shows and work through this, and some people won't even see lights yet because they're too busy. So they're probably still in alpha, like floating between alpha and beta and thinking too much. So
Yeah,
it
well, we use a cleansing. So I use a cleansing. You're literally grabbing any thoughts and flushing them out the back as smoke.
yeah.
That's the first couple of minutes, first 5 minutes even, just
I do a similar
cleansing.
thing, but mine's a stream, like a stream
Yeah,
of consciousness. Just
yeah, and you just stream it out of there. Just get rid of it, and then that's when the
So that's why for me, when the Sync Tuition, like Mind Spa, sorry, app is
yeah.
really good because you use noise cancelling headphones, and the frequencies will help with the slowing down, will help with the
Right.
coherence.
So sorry, I
Um,
interrupted then in terms of saying which ones you were explaining a bit about them and where they were
oh
going.
yeah, I was just saying that they're for me. So I haven't done an ECG and tracked this yet. I would love to do that. I would love to get people meditating and be like indicating to me when they see the lights, and I would love to track and see, but I haven't found any papers directly on
You know what
that.
does it? These watches, my heart watch, I've got a cardio watch, and it actually picks me going to sleep.
Yeah.
Like as in, I'm sitting there meditating in a chair.
Oh, it says that you're asleep.
It says that I've gone to sleep.
Probably except tracking your heart rate, is it?
It's an algorithm that's tracking half a dozen things all at
Interesting.
once.
Okay,
Yeah, very
I'll be
interesting.
listening to that. But yeah, so for me, from my meditation experiences and observing other people and their experiences, that's my understanding. You're pretty much locked into theta around that portal opening, and that's what Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla understood.
Mm.
Because your imagination, what happens is when you go below beta brainwaves into alpha, your analytical mind sits in there in between the two. So when you go deep down into your meditation, you become highly suggestible to information. Hence, people do hypnotherapy and get information suggested to them.
Yep.
And the other thing is you're able to imagine things without construct because your logical and reasoning mind is taken out of the way. So Albert Einstein used to do this thing where he'd hold an apple and he'd meditate, well, go to have an afternoon nap, but he'd have it hanging off the couch. And so when he'd drop into past theta, he would drop the apple and he would pick the apple back up.
Yeah.
And then he would meditate again, trying to come up with solutions to his problem. So, I mean,
Relativity
I
did it.
know this is amazing. So the meditation allows you to release a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. Now, I talked about this at my show, which is the fact that between up until the age of 25, you have this neurotransmitter quite prevalent, and it's responsible for neuroplasticity, which is creating neural pathways in the brain. And then it starts to drop off dramatically. And then by the age of around 35, it's not very prevalent at all. So the thriving for me came from doing things like meditation, breath work. To me, I almost got a tattoo on my arm. I don't have a tattoo, but it was almost going to be breathe because I started doing Wim Hof breath work, and I think it honestly saved my life. Every day at lunchtime, my baby would be asleep, my other one would be out at daycare, and I would just drop out. And it was phenomenal because you go into this retention sometimes for 2 minutes long where I'm not breathing and I'm just observing my body. And I feel like my mind, body, spirit is almost disconnected in that moment. And I'm able to just be. And it was one of the most magical experiences. Anyway, but again, breath work releases acetylcholine. Meditation releases acetylcholine. Yoga releases acetylcholine. EMDR therapy, so eye movement, desensitization, reprocessing, that also does the same thing. Psychotherapy, hypnosis. So getting psychotherapy under hypnosis, so powerful because you're getting your psychotherapy under theta brainwaves where you're highly suggestible to new information. So you can create neural pathways quicker. So all those modalities, interestingly, I wasn't doing EMDR therapy, but I was doing yoga, meditation, breath work. I was having, therapy, and I didn't do the hypnosis part, but I did work with someone later on because I looked into it and was like, this is amazing. Like, what a shortcut cheat. Like, this is crazy. But only once I started putting all the puzzle pieces together of me wanting to put on these shows, I realized that I was thriving because I was doing the things that actually helped me to rewire my brain. Because what people forget is when we're 35, we're literally programmed in the past. The thoughts lead to the same actions, same actions lead to the same behaviors, which lead to the same emotions, which lead to the same thoughts. And we just keep cycling. So unless we meditate and we get beyond the body, because the body is going to be like, I'm craving caffeine, I'm craving, the stress that I feel when I'm in the car driving to work, that your body wants to habituate into what it's always done. So we need to get above that, rewire this and create new ways of thinking, ways of being, so that the lens can change. So then you can go, you know what, I can start that podcast. I can quit my job. I can, instead of living in fear and limiting beliefs of what's programmed in the past.
It's so powerful, isn't it?
So powerful. And I just feel like I wish that more doctors, I'm not going to say, because I have a beautiful holistic doctor, and the first things he'll say is like, "Are you meditating?" I'm like, "I probably could have done more meditation in the last couple of weeks." And then he'd be like, "Have you done any yoga lately?" Like, they're more informed. Like, let's try these things first. Sometimes I wish the doctors would be like, "Have you heard the teleo for a week? I'm going to prescribe that. I'm going to prescribe that you meditate. Just prescribe that you get into a cold shower. Like, prescribe." But here's the thing: people don't want to. It's hard to do those things.
It is.
That's what we need to do. We need to get comfortable in being uncomfortable, because that's where the growth is.
Yeah, 100%.
But if we could prescribe those things to people like we prescribe pills, I feel like we'd be in a much healthier place.
I interviewed a doctor last week who also
Really?
he suffered from prostate cancer,
Right.
and he, unlike me, he hasn't been able to shake it off because it metastasized, and he's changed his whole medical perspective as a result. And so he is he's one of the few. He's a rare animal, that's for sure. And he takes a holistic approach to medicine, and he's far more compassionate about talking with his patients. You know, there's more than just the 15-minute consultation.
Because there's so much about lifestyle that's, tied up in here. And as you talked about with your journey, like the stress,
Absolutely, 100%.
Constantly in fight or flight. Like, this is, I'll play the last song in a minute, but, I can't remember who was talking about this, but I love the analogy of back in the caveman days, the tiger would come, you'd run into the cave, you'd be heightened, and then the tiger would leave and you would calm down.
Yeah.
But we live in a society where the tiger comes, we run into the cave, and then we think the tiger's constantly out there.
It's just outside, yeah.
And then eventually your body starts to like go into shutdown mode, and we have autoimmune diseases and all sorts of things popping up. And that's where we need to change. We need to educate people like what you're doing. So I'm so grateful for the gift that you're giving the world, the book that you've written.
Oh, thank you.
Because we're doing the work to help. Where I see us as if lack of a better word, like we're the light workers that share all the information. So for me, light is information and darkness is lack of information.
Yeah.
So we're just constantly
good point.
sharing light, sharing information, not woo-woo light, like information to help people discern and make their own judgment.
That's exactly it. So in terms of information and judgments and things, we'd like to judge your last song.
So this last one's a little bit different. She's a little bit more upbeat. It's actually coming out next year. It's called Fly. And it's got a little bit of a rap, little rap piece in there. And then I'll come back and I'm guessing we'll title up.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about this song then.
So this song's called Fly, and it's about the 40-40-40 and how we've been programmed in...
Go back to the 40-40-40 for those who don't know what it is.
So when we work for 40 hours a week for 40 years of our life to retire on 40% of our annual wage, really.
Perfect, thank you.
So it's about that programming that we've been programmed by society, and not consciously. I believe that our parents were, bringing us up with the tools that they had, and so on and so forth. But I feel like this generation is waking up to go, you know what? We don't have to do it all that way. And the message is that we can actually fly. Now, we can't physically fly, but we can fly in life. And so that it's just reminding us all that, do what you want to do, because you're capable of it. We're capable of so much more than we even could dream of. Transforming our bodies, meditation alone can regrow the hippocampus. They've done studies on that. Joe Dispenza even talks about the fact that, now I haven't seen the study on this, so this is something that people can investigate themselves, but meditation actually increased the lengths of telomeres in the cells, which means that that's increasing lifespan. It's increasing the amount of divisions of the cell.
Yeah.
So he had an anomaly in his study where someone was increasing their telomeres. So again, I'll repeat that. Telomeres indicate how many cell cycles it has.
Yep.
So when the cell dies, we start to get saggy skin, we get grey hair cells, but these telomeres actually lengthened. So that in itself is, in his eyes, like quantum anomaly,
Yeah.
So magical. We're magical.
Well, show us a bit of your magic.
All right, I'll play Fly. Let's go.
Let's go.
Everybody thinks that when they're born that they're limited by the things they saw. Must have one big house and a giant mortgage. It's healthy debt, they said, but I don't believe what I hear. Why do we all think that it's so clear what you must do and where you must go? I don't agree. Everybody's gotta walk around on 2 feet, on 2 feet. Everybody's gotta see with 2 eyes, but don't know they can fly, they can fly, they can fly. Don't know they can fly, they can fly, they can fly. And so can I. Everybody thinks that when they die that they must leave behind one big legacy. Slave away for 40 years, 40 hours a week, trying to make ends meet. Don't you see the kids, they're free right now. Don't cage their souls in the system now. Got a chance to change the world, to change the when and how. Got a chance to change the world for generations. Stand up, stand up. You gotta stand up, stand up. The devil caged your mind, the devil caged your soul. The devil caged your dreams and left you with nowhere to go. He's all up in your fears, he sits between your ears. It's time to stand up and show the devil that you have got your wings. And you have got your wings, and you know how to fly. Let go of all your limitations now, cause you are vibing high. The truth is who you feel, gotta look them in the eye. Go through the dark just to see the light. Everybody's gotta walk around on 2 feet, 2 feet. Everybody's gotta see with 2 eyes, but don't know they can fly, they can fly, they can fly. Don't know they can fly, they can fly, they can fly. The devil caged your mind, the devil caged your soul. The devil caged your dreams and left you with nowhere to go. He's all up in your fears, he sits between your ears. It's time to stand up, so you can fly, you can fly. So you can fly, you can fly, you can fly. Don't you know you gotta walk around on 2 feet, walk around on 2 feet, walk around on 2 feet. And you can fly, you can fly, you can fly. And so can I. Everybody thinks that when they're born that they're limited and don't know they can fly.
Alrighty.
Fantastic. And we are back. That was lovely. Thanks, Hazel.
Thank you.
And that'll be coming out next year, you say?
Next year, hopefully end of January.
The one thing I do before I close out with all my guests is I ask them, now in your case, it's about that moment of trauma, that just before you started to feel better, you started to get an understanding of things, and you started to move forward. What's something you'd say to yourself if you were back then about the future, about your future? What sort of advice would you give them?
I'd just say that it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
And to just trust yourself, because you've got this.
And you have got this, absolutely, well and truly, by the eyeballs.
I'm trying.
Yeah, you're doing a great job, and you're doing to be a mother, raising some lovely kids, chasing your dreams, turning dreams into action, the whole works. Hazel, you are an absolute icon, and I hope to see you again sometime soon at some function, festival.
Or I'll have you on my show and everyone can come over and we'll have a chat over there.
There you go. That sounds like a fantastic idea. Anytime.
Yeah, I would really love to share your story too.
Thanks, Hazel, and I look forward to it.
Thank you. So
And
can
thank
I
you for
just
sharing your
mention
music.
to everyone that if they want to follow me on Instagram, they can go to Instagram. So Hazel Ray _frequencies.
Yep.
And my podcast is Beyond the Human, also out on all the podcast platforms as well.
Yeah, we
So
building
my
all
Spotify
your-
and my Spotify, my music is all there. There's like 10 songs out there.
I'll set up a Spotify page for Decode Your Diagnosis, and we'll feature your music on
Oh,
the
thank
podcast.
you. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
lovely. Thank you. And yeah, I'll put all the links to all your social platforms and so on in the show notes for this show.
Thank you.
So thank you, Hazel, and I wish you the best of Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys.